I really do not like my Big Bang model. I'd like to show it here, I guess. My theory is built around this idea that nothing crosses a black hole's event horizon, and that space-time below the event horizon, it's repulsive, it's gravitationally repulsive. You're pushed away from the event horizon by the interior. And this is not by any kind of quantum force. There's no like photons going between anything to do this attraction or repulsion. All that's happening is geometry. The interior of black holes is pseudospherical, hyper-pseudospherical actually. So there'd be a sphere which we see, and in higher dimensions it is a pseudospherical shape which we cannot see. And this is happening all the time in black holes. If we take all the mass of the universe, crunch it up below its, or at its Schwarzschild radius, turn it all into a black hole, what it's going to be is mass doing this process which I called space-time boiling. It might be more accurately described as asymptotic darkness. We've got scattering particles that are producing black holes all the time. Every time one black hole is produced, more black holes form around it, and they're competing for mass all the time. Each black hole has the geometry of being spherical in our dimension and having a pseudospherical higher dimensional aspect to it. I think this is also the way that the universe came into being. I have to be able to differentiate between the observable universe and the universe itself. But I guess I better get going on it. So, my model is that a long time ago, probably longer than 13.8 billion years, which means that it's longer than the existence of the observable universe, there was a black hole collapse like this. And we see it as spherical because we can go in every direction. I mean roughly spherical because there's 3 dimensions of motion within any spherical space. But there is an overall dimensionality that we can't see, that is the overall curvature of the space, and I would like to demonstrate that idea here. You could think of this as like an event horizon, and if it's like an event horizon, that means there's going to be a pseudospherical shape in this direction, and there's also going to be a pseudospherical shape in this direction. My model is that the energy of this space-time, as the event horizon passed across it, was diverged into 2 different directions as you would expect from a pseudosphere. Because it was collapsing as a black hole, it's highly energy dense, which means that all of this was basically black hole mass, this kind of asymptotic darkness is occurring, space-time boiling, as I like to call it, is occurring, and this whole bubbling black hole mass. That's all this was. I call it black holium, it could be called holium, but it's just the idea that it's all black hole mass. But as this event horizon expands, it puts tension on the surface, and there is a limit to it in either direction. And when the expansion reaches, this is the Schwarzschild radius of the mass emerging from this black hole surface. So when it's pushed past this by the inflation of the expanding event horizons, you would get a Big Bang. And the space will expand very rapidly in either direction. And you'd have to imagine that this particular surface that's now become the Big Bang, the post-Big Bang surface. So I'll actually right here. This is the Big Bang surface. So here's your Big Bang surface, and here is the expanding universe coming out of that Big Bang surface as the event horizon in the higher brane of space-time is expanding in either direction. So as the Big Bang occurs, it's throwing off the universe upward into this part of the pseudosphere. And of course this is a pseudosphere, so this portion of the of the diagram actually expands to infinity in one direction. And an identical thing happens in a secondary Big Bang. In a secondary Big Bang on the second surface. So here we have a second universe that's being produced at the same time. That's just the geometry of pseudospheres. You're going to have one direction and another direction. And my model is that this universe that's produced, our observable universe, is the matter universe, and this universe that is separated from us by the black hole surface and its black hole surface and the event horizon, this is the antimatter universe. So this is in order to explain symmetry breaking, you create an entire second universe out of the geometry of a pseudosphere that is nothing but antimatter, while we have the matter universe. And I want to explain why I don't like this model. I don't know the nature of this interaction. I don't know what's happening at the matter-antimatter split. And I don't know why it would just tend to have one surface be matter and one surface be antimatter. We know we can make antimatter in this universe. It's been made. So there's no problem with antimatter existing in this universe just because our arrow of time points in one direction because of the space-time curvature going this way, and the other universe has its arrow of time going in the opposite direction relative to ours because of its geometry. Either way, I can have antimatter here, or I can have matter here. So I don't know the nature of what produces this matter-antimatter formation at the expanding event horizon. The other thing I don't like about this is that there's clearly an up and down in this universe. If I'm moving up away from this point where the Big Bang is happening, then the universe gets less dense and it gets colder. If I'm moving down towards this Big Bang event, then the universe gets more dense and it gets hotter. And as we look around the universe, that is not seen. The other thing that's difficult about this Big Bang model I've lost myself in it. Well, let's focus on the surface. That's right. The surface of this, if it's pseudospherical, is definitely going to be negatively curved. And if it's negatively curved, we can have two light beams. I'm just going to use this as an illustration area here. I can have two light beams that are parallel to one another. Boom. And in flat space, they will always be parallel to each other. But in negatively curved space, I would expect the two light beams to diverge from one another as time goes on. We don't see that either. So here are predictions that I can make that are not seen in any observations. We don't see, the universe appears to be isotropic, so there's actually no variation in the density or heat overall throughout the entire observable universe. And also light beams appear to be moving parallel to one another, and that means it's flat. So those two observations contradict my Big Bang model that I presented here. So that's another reason I don't like it. Now, why do I still maintain this? Well, one, it's the only thing that is applied to my theory that seems consistent with it, so you've got to have something that's consistent with your theory if you want to move forward, but obviously your theory has to be calculated and demonstrated first, so give me time on that. But what I don't like about this is that the only way for this to work is if the observable universe is incredibly, incredibly small. And getting smaller, because the universe is still expanding. Actually, the Big Bang is still happening in this model. We observe this accelerated expansion all the time as dark energy. This event horizon is still eating through this brain of space-time as it moves forward. That means there's still mass coming into this throat of dense space-time as it moves out. That means that the Big Bang is still being supplied with mass all the time. And so since that's the case, that becomes the observation of dark energy. I've lost myself in it again. The universe, the only way that this could make sense is if the universe is extremely small. Why? We'd have to be so small that we wouldn't know the difference in the temperatures and the densities. We'd have to be so small that we wouldn't know the difference in the paths of light across space and time. And since this is growing ever bigger, our universe is actually becoming smaller relative to the overall universe, even though we appear to be expanding at greater and greater acceleration because of this dark energy action by the expanding event horizon. And then there's the realization that one day all this stops, that there's a balance that stops, maybe the event horizon stops expanding. And at that point, it would be a very curious thing, because if you could travel fast enough, if you could travel faster than light, and of course we're going hypothetical here, but if you could travel faster than light, my hypothesis is that as you move in this direction, you would notice space becoming more hot and more dense. And if this process does one day stop, you would reach a point above this Big Bang black hole. And if the expansion is stopped, then this Big Bang black hole just becomes a regular black hole. And suddenly you would have a black hole where you could travel across the entire universe above this black hole. And you would arrive back to your starting point, and below you would always be a black hole. So there's a universal horizon in the downward direction of our universe, is the model that I'd like to present. I don't like how small this makes I don't like how small the observable universe would have to be in order for this model to make sense. I don't like that. And I don't like that there's no real observable evidence for it. And I can only propose that the reason for that is simply because the observable universe is too small to observe the variation which occurs over the greater scales of distance presented by this particular model. And as I say, the more I think about this particular model, the less I like it. I really don't like it that much. But it's the only one that's forthright in presenting itself relative to my hypothesis. So I felt the need to present it. Many problems, many more problems, and no answers. I'll keep at it.